Noises. We are buried within ourselves. We send out signals, gestures, and sounds indefinitely and uselessly. No one listens to anyone else. Everyone speaks, no one hears. Direct or reciprocal communication is blocked. This one here speaks learnedly. He is as boring as the last course he gave. He doesn't care if people hear him. Another, more jovial, plays a strong role that he dearly holds onto. He spreads his good humor through his discourse. The third, an irritable pipsqueak, and always on his high horse, terrorizes those around him. They all play their favorite instrument, whose name is their own. All that should produce cacophony. I admit that it makes noise. And Leibniz is right. Monads are closed. They neither hear one another nor listen to one another. And yet, sometimes, there is agreement. The most amazing thing in the world is that agreement, understanding, harmony sometimes exist. Leibniz supposed God for this law miracle. He said, "Here is an orchestra. Each musician plays his instrument as if he were alone in the world. He likes only his English horn. This English horn is he himself in person. He plays his part of the score, and when he is finished, at the very end of the page, he puts down his things and leaves the theatre. But only to die. How could the first viola be in harmony with him? For the first viola has never thought of anything but his 4 strings. Leibniz answered, God created the viola so that at a certain predetermined and well-fixed time it would produce the note preformed harmonically to that of the English horn. God foresees harmony, and God is harmony. History is programmed. Everyone has a score. Others say that they are in the same linguistic milieu together. Words have to find each other, since they are part of the same set. And this is the same solution. There is a conductor or a common text to play. Someone or something always precedes. That doesn't resolve the problem, but only gives the answer. We give ourselves the answer in the form of a person or a pretext. The probability of harmony is weak in the multiple distribution of senders and the qualitative weakness of reception. Harmony is not a law. It is not regularity. Harmony is rarity itself. It is, quite precisely, a miracle. I call a miracle a very great improbability. When the miracle occurs from an improbable accord, it produces a new song, so very rare that it is forbidden for repetition to have ever occurred for as long as the period of time was before the meeting. This agreement is negatively entropic. It is a producer. It is perhaps production itself, its definition and its dynamism. In any case, repetition is death. It is the fall into the similar, like the fixed identity of the too well-known. If the only concerts in the world came from the already written, the world would quickly become a pale hell where shades floated about. It is often like that, I know. But were truth and reality always prescribed, everything would be transformed into the sepulchral. The always already is only a cemetery where entropy rots matter away. Fortunately, the rare exists. Exceptions come about, novelty appears. The improbable miracle. Through this rarity, the world comes into existence. We live and we think. These 3 events are improbable, but are there nonetheless. The performed and ever repeated are this text of death bearing the disappearance of the real. Another incarnation of thanatogenic philosophy that seeks to transform the world into a pillar of salt or a plain bestrewn with corpses. If there already is a text or a conductor, if there have been enough repetitions, enough practice, then the world is a hell and we are but shades in it. Then death has won the game, aided in its work by philosophy. Of habitual cacophony. The participants send more or less canonic sounds here, and sometimes they make sense. The sum, or the product, or the composition of these sources is heard as caricatural, inaudible, unfelt. The meal last night was ordinary. The jovial man spoke loud and recited. The learned man perorated, sufficient unto himself. The man of doctrine screeched the truth, and nothing but the truth. The irritable man boomed out about power. The vain man spoke well of himself. The wise man kept quiet, taciturn, waiting for fatigue to set in so he could have the last word. Amidst this chaos, I had the cheese course served. Let us say that I was the host, and that the goat cheese was delicious. It was divided from hand to hand, but it remained identical to itself until it disappeared. The plate held the stable ready to disappear. The air vibrated with noise and disagreement. It would not have been customary for the jovial man to listen to doctrine, or for a vain man to listen to the learned man. It would have been miraculous had agreement been produced. Supposing such an epiphany, we would certainly have been able to resolve some ancient difficulty. A theorem, a text, or even a thing would suddenly have entered the room, like a wind proper for bending our heads, and would have alit on the table amongst us. When a closed monad hears a shut monad, when a deaf man listens to a mute, together they produce something living that is entirely new, that is never a repetition. This birth is a proof. Our naivete, that is to say, the newborn come to light, is a proof, and a decisive one at that, of the fantastic negative entropy of the plighting of troth. Suddenly, there is production. The only new is naivete. The only new is the miraculous. But this miracle comes from agreement. If you are naive, you will be the child of novelty. But also, listen, you will have children. Here childbirth has come in beauty, in the middle of the banquet. We know nothing of composition, of the product, of the sum, of the integral of monads or of individuals, however their society or association is named. We know nothing of the simplest or most direct operations, addition, multiplication, composition, combination, when it has to do with us. Alas, we can only subtract, analyze, kill. The collective is a black box. The set makes noise. Even if each element plays in tune or sends meaning, the set together produces a false, dangerous, senseless clamor. The collective is white noise itself. We do not know what an orchestra is or how a chorus harmonizes. The collective is not a pre-established harmony, or to put it another way, it is not the always already there. Noise comes out of the black box. Noise and chiveries. The politician pretends to understand, as do the scientist and the theoretician. The religious man pretends to understand, as do the soldier, the inspector, and the militant. Each social function is a known and pinpointed variety of black ignorance, intelligently disguised as white expertise. But the reversal of real noise into theatrical harmony, of the killing of meaning and sound into an accord that is at least represented, is not the only benefit here. Every social function, from the judge to the professor and from the artist to the president, every function that is classified or classifiable in some theory of classes or functions, every function, I say, eats and lives on the aforementioned ignorance. It appears as soon as the black box must be closed, and this operation is paid for rather dearly, so that the holder of the key lives well of it. The one who holds a key does not necessarily have knowledge as well. He can also guard a lock and forbid it to be opened. Each social function is the guardian of a door of the ark, and of a dangerous door, so it would seem. We understand nothing of the collective nor of the set. We must admit that this ark is full only of shadows, and that only an untranslatable noise comes out of it, that there is no sight outside the box or the ark from which someone could hear or translate or see, that we are in the ark, and if we are outside, we are no longer ourselves. The collective is not an ordinary object. It is not susceptible to definition, or to division, or to exteriority. Nor is it a subject. Who among us would be a subject? Who would this we be? Who is it? What does it say? Where is it? This set is not a subject. It is not an object. It is thus outside the function of knowledge. We do not know what we means, nor what constitutes it. We do not know what happens between us and what passes between us. If there is no knowledge, how could there be will? This will is an automorphism, and by that word I mean the projection or the reproduction of what was thought to happen within me in this new mythical subject, the we. It is retranslated egology. Who can assure that the we has the same attributes and the same faculties as the ego, a thought, an intelligence, a will? Why not desires, appetites, or sexuality? We have made the same error about the collective as about God. We made it in the image of the ego. Of my soul, sometimes, when it is given will, intellect, the power of decision, when one goes from the personal cogito to the cogitamus, or from the monadic volo to volumus, but often of my body. Great beast, mystical body, Leviathan, biological models, the beast. No, we know nothing of the we, except for what we think we know of the ego, body, and soul. In sum, we know nothing, and once more the collective is black and makes noise. What is not discussed? What is there no dispute about? What do we immediately agree about? On a point of law, there is a contract. Law is our rather stable existence. Politics is our unstable history. In principle, for in fact the professionals rush to stabilize it for their own profit. The theoretical social contract is written in tatters in law books. Put together, they refer to an unwritten text that, were it written, would teach us what being together means. But this text is not written, and perhaps cannot be. In any case, we are not discussing law, except on the edge of jurisprudence. We are not discussing law because of the policeman. We fear the force on which it is based. We agree somewhat, and obey a lot. For we are afraid of the dark. Law organizes our concrete life as a group, as a family, as well as relations among peoples. It is full of details and meaning. It varies from one culture to another. Specialists seek to connect the differences. All these efforts, differences, and similarities fluctuate according to the circumstances of history. The agreement is lost. There is, however, a corpus which is agreed on, as if by miracle, the mathematical corpus. It is debated only at its limits, by researchers discussing advanced points. For the rest, there is no disagreement. One can be anti-Darwinian, against general relativity, but no one can put the four rules into doubt unless he wants to leave the community. The scales at a market can be fixed, but neither addition nor subtraction can be falsified. Your partner can cheat you in an exchange, but he can't cheat you in giving you your change. Mathematics is an agreement among us. The circle has one center, the ellipse has two. What can you argue with here? In a way, mathematics is a we. It is no longer such in the closed circles of invention, but nevertheless remains such as far as it is understood. It is rather a new we, invented by the Greeks, infused by them into history, with great consequences, among which is the act of painting us a common and ideal portrait. Is it illusory? We agree on numbers, at least. The agreement is not related to money, but to units and then operations. Money refers to the law text, minted on copper, brass, gold, silver. Paper money remains a convention, a contract founded on force and on death. The economy depends, quite obviously, on violence. One can easily see that the agreement on numbers is of a different nature and with other consequences. It is translinguistic and transcultural. Nothing can be done about that. It is possible for us to nourish scientists indefinitely in recognition of the fact that they built this fragile bridge among the rest of us, perhaps a unique one, in fact. Only mathematical signals circulate among us. They are the only ones to cross peacefully the thickness of incommunicability that separates us and that is crossed cruelly only by armed forces, screaming and deadly. No, this train of signals was only the second. First of all, a train was necessary, as were signals. The condition for agreement on a meaning, for it to be minimal or unequivocal, is, quite simply, perfect agreement. For an accord to be realized, be it about a thing or a word, there must be an accord. I am alone this morning, as usual, leaning over my work in a white silence. My ears are undoubtedly sensitive to this vague white noise that is indispensable to survival. From a fold of space, as if from a hollow in the word, an audible wave comes to me. It is impure. It yells. It grates. It whines. Thus I flee. I curl up in the heart of my attention, in the apex of my solitude. I instinctively look for a high spot that cannot be reached by this attack. I am afraid. I am afraid of the grating noise, of stridulation, of the shivery. My very skin is horrified. It furrows up and bristles. If the intensity of the burst filling space were to increase, I would soon lose this refuge within myself and lose consciousness. Maybe the sky will fall on my head. Maybe there will be thunder, a volcanic explosion, an earthquake, a tidal wave, or a tsunami. I flee. Maybe it is the other who is roaring. I am afraid. I am afraid of the howling, the uproar, the stentor throwing the thunderbolts of God. Hence I flee. Nightingales are afraid of nightingales that sing and who thereby define the extent of their power. We must assume that the melody that enchants us is an inaudible whining for them. Noise separates us, individualizes us, just as fury disperses us. The thick wall that exists between us is built of noises and cacophony. The monad has neither door nor window. We are deaf, and for others we are dumb, because most of the time what arrives at our sensory apparatus that is always open, our hearing, is unbearable. We are surrounded by noise, and this noise is inextinguishable. It is outside, it is the world itself. and it is inside, produced by our living body. We are in the noises of the world. We cannot close our door to their reception, and we evolve, rolling in this incalculable swell. We are hot, burning with life, and the hearths of this temporary ecstasy send out a truceless tumult from their innumerable functions. If these sources are stilled, death is there in the form of flat waves, flat for recording, flat for closed ears. In the beginning is the noise. The noise never stops. It is our apperception of chaos, our apprehension of disorder, our only link to the scattered distribution of things. Hearing is our heroic opening to trouble and diffusion. Other receptors assure us of order, or, if they no longer give or receive, close immediately. None assure us that we are surrounded by fluctuation and that we are full of fluctuation. And it chases us from chaos. By the horror it inspires in us, it brings us back and calls us to order. The real seems to me to be stochastically regular, like similitude or homogeneity randomly scattered. The monad has neither door nor window, and this is so that it can defend itself from deadly melody. If we perceived all the noise of the world, if we suffered our own noise, we would faint and move toward the flat waves. Thus the monad double locks its orifices, and finally it suppresses them entirely because of this physical danger, death by inundation. After all is said and done, it does better to rely entirely on its own resources. But the Leibnizian solution, through an unexpected paradox, is maximally poor to minimize the disorder. Order having taken everything over, the mote of the dissonant sevenths still remains facing the flow of harmony. The outlay is not great, but the diversity remains weak. As far as I know, perfect tuning is not the height of art, and perhaps it is only its misery. Might harmony be a somewhat excited variety of flatness? Might it be an antechamber of death? This order from which parasitic dissonance is chased as much as possible, this homogeneity, this similar moving toward identity, this repetition, this straight line that is also the shortest, this flatness, aren't we slipping toward this when we lose acuity, consciousness, life? I fear that harmony is only a heavy folle de rôle for minds that crave only repetition. The world around us, in us, victoriously defends itself against the stupidity with the miraculous torrent of the unexpected. What remains intelligent in the cursus of the sciences is what is ahead, escaping the law. The best in me turns around. It is not only chased by the noise, chaos, and disorder, but also by the rule, flatness, and death. The best, that is to say, the least cadaverous. The supreme poverty of the system of harmony becomes known to us not only by the nature of things, but also by collective establishments. In Leibniz's scheme, God sets up each monad, and the monad's only singularity is its position. What circulates in the system is a single message, the law, differentially coded by the position of individuals. The only novelty that can intervene in this uniformity, this order, is my situation. The boss does not give orders to the vice president in the same way that he does to someone in a lowly position. All the horror of a society without hope is there. Only one thing is said there, and quickly and without interest. But it is said only by being modulated according to the position of the receiver. I imagine that that describes an animal collectivity. But I only imagine this, for what we know of animals tells us that, relative to us, they are geniuses in politics. The animal metaphor is quite often flattery. Noise destroys and horrifies, but order and flat repetition are in the vicinity of death. Noise nourishes a new order. Organization, life, and intelligent thought live between order and noise, between disorder and perfect harmony. If there were only order, if we only heard perfect harmonies, our stupidity would soon fall down toward dreamless sleep. If we are always surrounded by the charivari, we would lose our breath and our consistency. We would spread out among all the dancing atoms of the universe. We are. We live. We think on the fringe, in the probable, fed by the unexpected, in the legal, nourished with information. There are two ways to die, two ways to sleep, two ways to be stupid. A head-first dive into chaos, or stabilized installation in order and chitin. We are provided with enough senses and instinct to protect us against the danger of explosion, but we do not have enough when faced with death from order or with falling asleep from rules and harmony. Our chance is on the crest. Our living and inventive path follows the fringed, capricious curve where the simple beach of sand meets the noisy rolling in of the waves. A simple and straight method gives no information. Its uselessness and flatness, or platitude, is finally calculable. Intelligence, we knew, remains unexpected, like invention or grace. It does not surpass the surprising to head toward the anything under the sun. Rigor is never in the simple tending toward the identical, and would be nothing without uniting and holding together what should not be associated. There is only something new by the injection of chance in the rule, by the introduction of the law at the heart of disorder. An organization is born from circumstances, like Aphrodite rising from the sea.